Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy So What Day. Welcome. Today, we are so close to Valentine's Day. The big day is tomorrow. We've been creating so many heart-themed projects, creating Valentine cards last week. So I have one last project for everyone that you can actually create in no time. You could create this today and be able to wear it tomorrow on Valentine's Day. So we're going to learn an applique technique using some Sulky stabilizers. And you know what? It's one of those life-changing light bulb moment techniques that I think you're really going to love because it streamlines everything and it just makes applique so much easier. So that's what we're going to go over today. But I have a lot of kind of business to take care of before we dive into today's project. First off, I want to make sure that everyone is signed up or entered for our National Embroidery Month giveaway. We are giving away a bunch of Sulky stabilizers and thread valued at over $325, in fact, to celebrate National Embroidery Month. So all you need to do is head on over to sulky.com and you will see this graphic that I just put on the screen where it says enter now. Just click on that. It'll take you right to the entry page because you know what? We all should be a winner. But there will be one lucky winner who wins this sort of suite of embroidery projects. So make sure that you are signed up, sharing that out. There's lots of ways and chances to win. And I recognize so many people's names. Hi, Colleen. Good to see you. All right. Hi, Heather. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you. All right. So, also, in addition to this giveaway, oops, let's see. What am I doing here? We're just getting started. All right. So I also wanted to let everybody know that we will be exhibiting at QuiltCon this year. There will be a Sulky booth. That's right. I will be there along with my colleague Leanne, and we would love to see you at the Sulky booth. So if you will be at QuiltCon, come check us out. It's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's next weekend. You can find all about QuiltCon on their website, so you can check it out. If you live nearby, it's definitely worth making the trek. I've heard it's going to be one of the biggest shows that they have had in recent history, so it's going to be a great time. So make sure you check that out as well. And today is also the day that our 3D spring wall hanging embroidery session is available for viewing. So if you are not already registered, head on over to sewingonline.sulky.com and register for this embroidery sewing session. With your registration, you will get all the design files in 4 sizes to create this 3D wall hanging. The reason it's 3D is because all of the elements for the wall hanging are done in your embroidery hoop as freestanding elements. And then you combine them together with buttonholes and buttons and ribbons, and you create this 3D wall hanging. And it's so fun and cute and adorable, and I love it, and I can't wait to see everybody's creations. The kit for this event is still on sale, and it's on sale, I think, for the month of February. So it's only $49.99, and you will get the puffy foam interlining, which is going to make all of our freestanding pieces a little bit puffy and, have that 3D dimension. All of the Riley Blake fabrics that you see here, the ribbons, the buttons, of course, all of the Sulky thread, and the Fabri-Solvy Stabilizer. I'm actually going to be talking about Fabri-Solvy Stabilizer today for our Puffy Heart Appliqué project. And you'll have to excuse me, this embroidery session just dropped today. So everybody who's been waiting for their designs and waiting for the videos and waiting to go through the session are busy going through it all right now. So I'm just getting pinged with all kinds of questions. And that's the cool thing about these embroidery sessions is you get hands-on help as you're walking your way through the project. You can ping us instantly if you have a question, and we will get back to you. So, and thank you so much to the Sulky customer care team, because they are on it this morning answering questions and fielding questions and making sure everybody can get in to the class. So it's finally the day. I'm really excited to hear how you all like it. And of course, I want to see your finished projects as well. If you haven't already joined our Sulky Facebook group, it's called Sulky Stitch and Post. And all you have to do is search up Stitch and Post, ask to join that group. We'll let you in, and then you can share progress photos of all of your projects. You can ask questions directly to us right there. Sometimes we do special coupons for our Stitch and Posters, and we give you, sneak peeks of projects and all kinds of things, all kinds of benefits for joining us over there. All right. Let's see here. So Puffy Hearts. Now, I love a good puffy heart. Back in the day when the puffy paint sweatshirts were all the rage, we were all about that. We used to do fabric appliques and outline them in puffy paint. You remember those days? Don't leave me hanging here. All right. Very 80s trend, right? Well, applique, of course, is still the rage. It's just now we've kind of gone away from that puff paint and we are doing more thread work, which, of course, here at Sulky, we are excited about. So this Puffy Heart sweatshirt, I got the idea for this because a sweatshirt, not really similar to this, but a sweatshirt came on my social media feed with all these heart appliques all over it. It looked a little bit quilty, yet it still looked pretty modern. And I thought, I'm going to do a take on this sweatshirt, but I'm going to fill my appliques with a little bit of batting to make them puffy hearts instead of just flat appliques. So I kind of, figured out how to do this using some Sulky stabilizers so that we could fill the hearts. Anyway, we'll get to it. If you have any questions, make sure you're putting them in the live chat or in the comments. If you're watching on Facebook, you'll put it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll put it in a live chat. Same difference. Make sure you're putting your questions and comments in there, because I'm going to pick one lucky viewer at random who is commenting on the post, sharing out this live stream. You must like us on Facebook if you're watching there, or subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching there. That way I can contact you if you are the winner. And one lucky viewer is going to win a 3-yard pack of Sulky Fabri-Solvy, which is what I just showed you in our Designs by JUJU embroidery kit. We're also going to use it for these Puffy Heart appliques. All right, so let's get to it. First off, the full tutorial for our Puffy Heart sweatshirt or our Puffy Heart appliques is on the Sulky blog. I linked directly to it in the description of today's post. So if you're not seeing the whole description, click on that little see more button. The whole description will pop out. Then you'll be able to see links for everything I'm talking about today, including the full tutorial on the blog post. So when you head over to the blog post, you will have the opportunity to download this Puffy Heart Appliqué Template sheet. Now, it's really just 3 hearts. You could definitely create your own heart template just using a piece of paper, doing it the old-fashioned way, fold your piece of paper in half, cut out a heart, and now you have a heart applique template. But if you want a little help and you want to download this one from Sulky, by all means, it's in the blog post. All you have to do is click on it. It will download to your computer and you can print this off and have your heart templates ready to go. I just put 3 on the page because you might want to do multiples, and I'll show you how I did that as well. But you really only need 1 heart template, and you can use that for all the heart appliques you want to add to your sweatshirt. If you want to add them all over the front of a sweatshirt, You'll make obviously a lot more than I did. You could do one little heart, puffy heart applique on a sweatshirt. Maybe you have a sweatshirt that has a little stain on it. Put a puffy heart applique over there and you've rejuvenated your sweatshirt, breathed new life into it, and all of a sudden it looks a little bit designery as well. So you could put this on a sweatshirt. You could put it on maybe a medium weight to heavyweight t-shirt. You could put it on a jean jacket, all kinds of different things. I'm just using a sweatshirt. Sweatshirts are so cheap and easy to come by. And again, we can breathe new life into an old sweatshirt by adding some fun appliques. All right, so grab up your template or create your own. And we're gonna cut out as many, heart templates as you want to work with at once. You can put 2 on your fabric piece. You can just start with 1 and start creating them. It's up to you. So what I have here is my fabric for my applique is right side up on my flat work surface. Then I have a bit of Sulky Fabri-Solvy Stabilizer over the top of the fabric. Then I have my heart templates over the top of the Fabri-Solvy, and I've pinned them in place. So this is my little sandwich that I'm working with. Instead of cutting out the hearts, I'm going to cut out the hearts after I sew around them. It makes it so much easier to deal with our seam allowance and to make sure that our heart looks great while we're sewing around it. And we can go ahead and skip that step. So I take this over to my sewing machine and I put my needle position just to the right of the heart outline. And I'm just going to sew directly around the template, not sewing through it, just following those lines with my needle and thread. So it's a little bit hard to see because I used our Sulky 50 weight cotton thread for sewing my applique templates, or sewing around them rather. So you can see just how this white thread just blends right in. You can barely see it. I really recommend choosing a thread that's going to match your main fabric. So the background of my fabric print is white, so I went with a white thread. If your background is pink, go with a pink thread. You get the idea. You want your thread to blend in. You also want it to be fairly lightweight thread because this is really going to be the thread that's on our turned applique piece. And we're going to add more stitching to it when we applique it to the sweatshirt. So we don't want to use a thick thread or even what some would consider an all-purpose thread. We want it a little bit lighter weight than that, a 50 weight cotton or a 60 weight poly light if you prefer working with polyester thread. So we've got our heart stitched for our applique piece. Now we're going to cut it out using some pinking shears. You don't have to use pinking shears. You can simply cut it out 1/4 of an inch away from those stitches because we need a good seam allowance. If you don't use pinking shears, you'll want to clip into your seam allowance a little bit so that when you turn this right side out, it follows the curves nicely. So when you clip in to relax the woven fabric, it'll, follow the curves better. But if you use pinking shears, you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So if you've got pinking shears, use them. If not, cut out the heart 1/4 of an inch away from your seam line and then clip into it along those curves. Now, especially at the tip of your heart, where it curves in, you want to clip into that a little bit, whether you're using pinking shears or not. So clip up to, but not through the stitching line there. And that way you'll have a nice point at the top of your heart. All right, so after we've cut it out, we clipped into our upper edge little V, we're going to slice along the Fabri-Solvy only. This is going to be our opening for turning. So just separate those layers and slice through the Fabri-Solvy, not all the way to the stitching line, but just enough so that you can turn your heart right side out. Then you'll turn it right side out, and you want to use a turning tool to really go along the edges of your seam. I'm using the Sulky multi-purpose turning tool. It is my favorite tool. It's got nice grippers. You know, it's so funny. I have two of them, and not a single one of them is next to me when I want to show it to you. But you can see it in this photo. It's actually got two sides to it. One side has this kind of egg-shaped ball on it. The other side has a much smaller little ballpoint tip on it. So you can use either side depending on the project at hand. I'm using the little egg shape because one side of the egg shape has a bit of a point. The other side is nice and round. So you can run that along your seam line and get your heart or whatever shape you're creating for your applique nice and, you know, flat along the seam line. So once we have done that, you can take it over and give it a little bit of a press. No steam, because we're working with Fabri-Solvy here. And Fabri-Solvy means it's water soluble. It's a water soluble fabric-like stabilizer. So it's going to wash away when all of our applique is complete, leaving no trace. I know. So don't use steam if you're pressing this flat, because the steam will affect the stabilizer. It could start, you know, dissipating. It might gum things up for you. So we don't want to do that. All right. So you can give this a press if you want. If you're going to fill it with some fiber fill like I did, you may not need to press it, but it's up to you how wrinkly it is after you turn it right side out. So we're going to stuff it with just a little bit of fiber fill. You can stuff it as puffy as you want it. And first what you want to do is get a little bit of the fiber fill against that seam line, but you want to make sure that the fabric seam allowance that has turned, when you turned this right side out, you want to make sure that's going around the fiber fill so that the fiber fill is inside of that seam line. Okay, instead of, you know, poking out on the other side of it. Does that make sense? So make sure you first kind of use your turning tool, push that fiber fill between the back of the heart and the seam allowance, and then you can fill it a little bit more in as puffy as you like. So we're just going to fill that through our little opening in the Fabri-Solvy. Once you've done that with all of your hearts, it's time to plot where you want them on the sweatshirt. So I did 3 rows of hearts, 3 on top, 3 on bottom, and then 2 in between. The placement of your hearts is entirely up to you. I just used my clear ruler and my chalk marker to plot the rows for my hearts. Then I went up and down to plot them to make sure that they would be equidistant from each other and nicely positioned across the shirt. You want to also make sure that the hearts aren't going into like your armpit area, let's say, because that would be kind of awkward and look a little bizarro. So plot your hearts. You can even use your heart template pieces to plot them, or you can simply place your appliques on the sweatshirt. And once you like where they are placed and they look nice and equidistant, you can pin them down to the shirt front. So here I have placed mine according to, my markings. And then we're going to pin them down. So I made sure to use 2 pins on both sides of the heart so that there wasn't any shifting because, we're working with a sweatshirt which has stretch to it. So once we start sewing it, they could kind of shift out of place. So if you want to use many, many more pins around the outside of your hearts, by all means. All right. Once we have them pinned, it is as simple as edge stitching each one of them to the sweatshirt front. Now, I used a universal needle for this, a size 70-10, to match my 50 weight cotton thread. 70-10 is a little bit smaller needle eye, but it accommodates that size 50 weight thread perfectly. I did not use a jersey needle for the sweatshirt. If I was doing this on, let's say, a t-shirt weight, I would suggest medium to heavyweight if you're going on a t-shirt, because you don't want the applique, you know, depending on how much you stuffed them, you don't want them kind of weighing down a lighter weight shirt. But if I was doing this on a t-shirt, I'd go with a jersey needle just to make sure I didn't puncture the knit fabric with my needle. Now, a universal needle has a little bit of a ball point to it, but not as much as a jersey needle has. So the ballpoint needle, since it's not a sharp point, it moves the knit fibers away to create room for the thread. When you're using a sharp needle, it pierces through the fabric. So that can result in holes in your knit shirts. So you want to go with a jersey needle if you're working with a t-shirt weight or a lighter weight sweatshirt that has a lot of stretch to it. So anywho, you're going to want to edge stitch along all of your hearts, and this is going to make sure that your turned applique edge is sewn down with your stabilizer between. All right, so after we have sewn all of our hearts, we're done. It's as simple as that, and so cute. Also for your hearts, with the sample that I saw, you know, on my social media feed, I wish I could remember the designer or the company that was selling it. But you know, that's the problem when you're scrolling. It just goes by so fast, and sometimes it's hard to find again, but it's stuck in my brain, the look of that sweatshirt. At any rate, you don't have to use the same fabric for all the hearts. Dive into your fabric stash, find a sort of color scheme that goes with your sweatshirt, or not. You can even do contrasting hearts in all different fabrics all over the sweatshirt. Or again, just do one, put it right here, you know, would be so, so cute. All right. So once you have all of your hearts sewn, throw it in the washing machine, and all of the Fabri-Solvy is going to dissolve away, leaving no trace behind. You will have your fabric appliques stitched to the sweatshirt with the stuffing inside and no stabilizer remaining. So it's a really neat way to do turned applique and not have to contend with something like a heart that has all these curved edges to it. And it's a little bit harder to, you know, press and make sure that your edges are nice and clean and straight. So much easier with the help of some stabilizer. All right. And this is another one of those projects where my girls are fighting over the sweatshirt now. So if that tells you anything, they really loved the project. I actually made this in an adult size small sweatshirt. So in this photo, my daughter is like holding the bulk of the sweatshirt behind her because she wanted to wear it so bad. So I should have made it in a kid size so that they could wear it without, you know, it being so baggy on them. But this is one of my girls modeling it, and my other daughter wore it today to school. So if that tells you anything about, you know, the popularity of the finished project, you know, I always count that as a win when my girls like the finished result. So give it a go. And the other thing I wanted to mention is we have another great project. It happens to be heart themed that shows off this turned applique technique using a different Sulky stabilizer. So I wanted to show that off to you as well. This is our paper pieced heart quilt. And this is a free project that you can get on sulky.com as well. You'll get the heart template for the paper piecing, and you'll want to use Sulky Fabri-Solvy to do the paper piecing part of these heart appliques. But they are all appliques that are added to these, you know, white or neutral blocks on the finished quilt. So it looks like they're pieced together, you know, as part of the quilt, but they are individual paper pieced appliques. And you do the same thing with the turned applique technique that I just showed off. But instead, oh, here's the paper piecing, you know, so you can find a lot of great fabric prints, paper piece your hearts together, and there's full instructions in the free project at sulky.com. But instead of using the Fabri-Solvy, for this one, we're using Soft and Sheer Extra, and I'll tell you why, you know, the difference here. Soft and Sheer Extra is a mesh-like, fusible, lightweight stabilizer. The fusible comes in handy because we can fuse the paper pieced heart to our background fabric after we turn it right side out. So you will still have the stabilizer with the project. It's not going to wash away like it would for the sweatshirt. And you can then fuse it in place and do all of your quilting. So that would be why you would want to use Soft and Sheer Extra versus using Fabri-Solvy for the same technique. But there are a few things I want to caution you about using a fusible for this technique. Some of them are probably obvious to you. But for the sweatshirt, I didn't want any kind of stabilizer to change the drape of the sweatshirt. On a wearable, it's really nice to use a wash away stabilizer that leaves no trace, because then your sweatshirt is still nice and pliable, moves with your body. You don't have these stiffer kind of hearts hanging off of you. Now, to be fair, Soft and Sheer Extra is still pretty lightweight. It's our, you know, Soft and Sheer is one of our lightest weight stabilizers. The Extra just means that it's a fusible variety of Soft and Sheer. Got it? All right, so the Extra, meaning the fusible part, the little glue bumps, they only add a little bit of weight. So you could use the fusible method for this one, for the sweatshirt, but since we stuffed it with that fiber fill, it would be a little bit more difficult to fuse the hearts into place. Plus, I just wanted the stabilizer to wash away and be gone. So I used Fabri-Solvy for the garment, but for the quilt, using a fusible stabilizer allows us to fuse it down, have it not move during the quilting process. All right, so we are understanding the differences between the two and why we choose one over the other for different projects. So after paper piecing the heart, you will put your Soft and Sheer Extra over the right side of the paper pieced heart. You want the fusible side facing the pretty side of the fabric. All right. So you'll sew around and you'll see again, the stabilizer is not trimmed here. It's just so much easier to sew it first and then trim it together. But the paper pieced heart is going to be trimmed. So keep that in mind. All right. Oh, this is just sewing it. So you can see the Soft and Sheer looks very similar actually to the Fabri-Solvy. It's just a little bit heavier weight and it's not going to wash away. It's a permanent stabilizer. So now we'll do pretty much the same thing and trim up the heart with the stabilizer sewn to it using those pinking shears. Again, if you don't have pinking shears, totally fine. Just trim, give yourself about 1/4 of an inch away from your seam, trim around that heart, and you'll want to do the same thing and clip along those curves so that when you turn it right side out, the curves, you know, go along the seam line nice and flat. So then you'll have your paper pieced heart. Looks a little bit different from the heart that I used for the Puffy Heart Appliqués, but that's because it's paper pieced and it's just a little bit different style of heart. Then you're going to turn it right side out. And, you know, before turning right side out, obviously you need to trim through your stabilizer only, just like we did previously. So separate those layers a little bit, make a little snip, and then cut a little bit of a slit into the stabilizer only, and then you'll turn the heart right side out. And again, use your turning tool in the same exact way. It was such a happy accident when I realized that this project was done, or this applique was done in the exact same way, just using a different stabilizer, and this heart is not stuffed. Now, first things first, you do not want to press this at all after you turn it right side out until you're ready to fuse it to your background fabric. If you go pressing this, you're going to fuse it to your ironing board. So no matter how wrinkled things look after you turn it right side out, you only want to finger press it. Just use your fingers and hands to lightly, make sure that your edges are nice and curved and everything looks nice. All right, so then you're gonna place your paper pieced heart on your background fabric, and now your fusible side is touching your background fabric, and you can fuse your heart in place. Then you're going to top stitch or edge stitch your heart to the background fabric, and you have no raw edges. Your turned applique looks nice and flat, and everything is straight, and it's fused and not going anywhere. So this is a great, alternative method when you're using, or when you're creating a quilt, a table runner, something like that where your applique is flat. You can also do this technique on flower appliques, on petals, on so many different appliques. So give it a go. When you want to do turned applique, try using a stabilizer with it, either a water-soluble one or a fusible stabilizer. Now, somebody was asking, can we use fusible web to do the same thing? And the answer is not really. You have the paper to contend with. Fusible web is typically double-sided, at least our perfect applique is, and it's a lot more difficult to contend with when you're doing this. But a fusible lightweight stabilizer is what you want to use for the turned applique method. All right. And yes, Doris says it might be fun to stuff the paper pieced heart for the quilt too. Exactly. You still certainly can. And, depending on the fabric you're using, you might be able to use a hot enough iron to where the fusible will still work, through your fiber fill that you're using as well. So do a little test and see how it handles things, before going on your finished quilt. So also along with this quilt, you may have noticed, and I'll show you another image of it, there are some paper pieced heart blocks, and then there's also some quilted heart blocks. So the same outline for the paper pieced heart is transferred to the other blocks, and then you can either free motion quilt or, even straight line quilt inside the hearts, do some outline stitching and really have fun with it. All right, let's see. Some people are saying, can you give me the link for this? Yes, we will put the link for the paper pieced heart quilt in the comments. You can also find it on the Sulky blog if you search for paper pieced heart. It's also on our free projects page on the Sulky blog. So there's lots of ways you can find that quilt pattern as well. Here's what the finished quilt looks like. You can see there's some paper pieced hearts, and then there's some quilted hearts. And I love the use of a white or a neutral fabric on a lot of the blocks, and then another kind of accent color fabric as well. But really, really pretty, nice technique to try. Paper piecing is always great for using up scraps as well. You could also just do one heart block and use it as a mug rug. It might be a little bit larger mug rug, but who cares? It's pretty and cute, right? You can also use it as like a table centerpiece. It would look really pretty with a bouquet of flowers in the center of it. So lots of different ways, you can interpret this project and do a mashup of the Puffy Heart sweatshirt meets the paper pieced heart quilt, and, you know, show me your ideas. I would love to see them. All right, I'm going to go through our questions. Make sure you're putting questions and comments in the live chat, because one lucky viewer who is asking questions and engaging with the post today, giving me those emojis. Today is definitely the day for those heart emojis, just saying. As long as you're doing that, you're automatically eligible to win a 3-yard pack of Sulky Fabri-Solvy so that you can try this technique for yourself. Ooh, I almost forgot. I also put together a little video that just shows me doing the Fabri-Solvy heart appliques. So I'll play that for you now, and you can kind of see a sped up version of me sewing the appliques. So here we go. So here I have my little heart. I'm pinning my template over the top of my fabric and the Fabri-Solvy, and then just sewing around the template. It just eliminates that step of having to transfer your pattern. Now we're going to trim up our heart using those pinking shears or regular scissors. Clip into the stabilizer only. Make sure that you clip into the V of that heart too. Use our turning tool to turn it right side out, and then stuff it just a little bit with that stuffing, making sure our seam allowance is around the stuffing. And then you'll just top stitch or edge stitch each heart in place on the sweatshirt. Make sure you then throw it in the washing machine, or you can just wait until the next time that you want to wash it, and the Fabri-Solvy will dissolve in the water. Also, I do want to mention, yes, you want to make sure to pre-wash that sweatshirt or t-shirt. If it's a new one, make sure you remove any of the sizing. If there's any shrinkage, you don't want to add all those appliques and then wash it afterwards and have that shirt or sweatshirt shrink up on you, because then your appliques are going to look wonky on the sweatshirt. So anytime we're kind of refurbishing a purchased sweatshirt or a new shirt, something like that, especially t-shirts that are 100% cotton, you want to make sure to pre-wash those, dry them, and then they're ready for embellishing. All right, let's see. I want to make sure I'm answering all the questions here. Sharon says, I'm seeing a scan and cut project. Yeah, it would be great to scan some hearts. Then you can cut out a bunch at once if you happen to have a cutting machine. So that's a great idea. Susie says, I have never done this. Yeah, it's really, I mean, as I said in the beginning, it's like a revolutionary technique because it just changes the way that you look at how something has always been done. And, you know, I used to turn to raw edge applique almost all the time because it's such a pain to fold those seam allowances to the wrong side of our turned applique, sometimes even running a gathering stitch to gather the outside edge. You know, if you're doing a circle, that often works, but circles so much easier to do with the help of Sulky stabilizers. It's just so much simpler, especially if you want to fuse it, use a fusible stabilizer. And, you know, it's like a 2-in-1. So really, really great idea. Rose says, so many good ideas for this pattern. Great. And cutting after sewing is a great idea. Absolutely. How much seam allowance do you add? So you want a generous 1/4 inch. You know, I would do, and you could even do a 1/2 inch, honestly. You want to make sure that you have enough seam allowance going to the wrong side of the project so that when the Fabri-Solvy washes away, there's a good foundation underneath those stitches. You know, in my photos, I may have gotten a little close on some of my hearts with the pinking shears. So I would err on the side of caution and go a little bit wider than a 1/4 inch when you're using those pinking shears, just to make sure, you know, you catch all those edges with your edge stitching when the appliques go on the sweatshirt. All right. Oh, Doris just got some pinking shears, so great idea to break them in with this project. And yes, an egg shape. So as we're thinking ahead into some spring projects, maybe some Easter projects, this would be really great for eggs. Ovals, petals, flowers, hearts, anything with that curved edge. And even if it doesn't have a curved edge, if you're doing an applique, and it's not too complicated with lots of, curvy edge pieces, you can get away with using this method, and you'll be so happy that you did. It's just saves you so much time and makes sure that those edges are nice and accurate as well. All right. Like the placement of the hearts. All right. Yeah, you could also try, again, putting hearts all over the sweatshirt. That was really the inspiration, as I saw that somewhere and I thought, I could make this and I'm going to figure it out all in my head. And, I did 8 hearts, but you could certainly do more. You could make them smaller. You could do just one line on the top of a sweatshirt would be cute of small hearts. Adorable. And so much easier to do smaller scale appliques with this method as well. I should have mentioned that. Could you glue them down before sewing them on? So I wouldn't particularly, you could use like a washable fabric glue. That would probably work. You could even try using the Sulky KK2000, which is our temporary spray adhesive. I actually think I did try that. But since we're working with like a pillowy type applique, it's a little bit harder to make sure they don't shift using that spray adhesive. You might be able to try like a washable fabric glue stick on the Fabri-Solvy and glue them down, but I would still add a couple of pins just to make sure, because when you have to sew them to the sweatshirt, we have to almost turn the sweatshirt a little bit wrong side out so that, you're not catching the back of the sweatshirt when you're doing the sewing. So, use your free arm on your sewing machine, remove your accessory tray so that you have better movement under the presser foot when you're sewing those appliques. And, just moving it around and sewing all those hearts, you might want to pull your sweatshirt away and make sure that nothing has shifted when you go to sew the next one. Just keep an eye on the placement of the hearts, because even with washable fabric glue, they could just shift, just simply because of the fact that you're moving the sweatshirt so much while you're sewing those hearts down. All right. Kathy says, love a good, simple, cute project. All right. You're in the right place. Did you make the shirt you're wearing? It's very unique. I did not, but funny thing, I actually bought this shirt because I wanted to copy it and I haven't copied it yet. But it's essentially 4 pattern pieces and it has, no sleeve or no inset sleeve. This is all just one piece. So there's 4 pieces of fabric sewn together. And I just thought, I can copy this, no problem. Have I copied it yet? No, but you will be the first to know when I have the tutorial up, because this is such an easy garment to make. And if you're new to making garments, and the fabric is pre-quilted, of course, but we could quilt our own as well. So we'll get to that, but it is a knit, very, very simple, just a turned neckline. So we'll have to experiment and come up with how to pattern this. So thank you for the compliment. All right. Janet says, reminds me of back in the day, I used puffy paint to embellish tees and sweatshirts. Of course, this applique will probably hold up better than the puffy paint. That's hilarious that you said that, because in the beginning of today's episode, I was talking about puffy paint. And that's why I kind of had a throwback calling this a Puffy Heart sweatshirt. And that's really what inspired me to fill the heart with a little bit of fiberfill or polyester stuffing or whatever, you happen to have, to make it, kind of pop up and have that puffy look. So yes, definitely reminds me of that. I'm not alone. Thank you. I'm not alone. Eileen says, could you use quilting batting cut in the heart shape? If you mean like using a piece of batting as the back to turn the applique, you probably could, but here's the thing. You might see the batting along the very edge of your heart. It might be visible there. That's another reason why I use the Fabri-Solvy, because when you turn it right side out and it washes away, you only see the fabric along the edge. You don't see the other thing that you sewed it to. And you even have that when you're using the fusible soft and sheer extra, you may see a little bit of that stabilizer along the edge of your applique. But when you use the wash away stabilizer, obviously that's gone and you just see the turned under edge of your fabric after washing it away. Now you could put a layer of batting maybe between, so that when you turn it right side out, you can make sure that your fabric seam allowance is going around the batting. I don't know. I haven't tried it, so maybe experiment. Or if you turn it right side out and you cut your batting heart a little bit smaller to take the seam allowance into account, then you stuff it with your batting heart, then you won't have that problem because the fabric will be going around the batting heart and you won't have the additional bulk of that seam that includes the batting. Does that make sense? All right. And Betty says it does not take long. Make them each one. I assume you mean make another one for my other daughter. I know I should. I always have to make two of almost everything, but I like to make sure that they both want one first. So now that I know, I'll have to make another one. Thank you. Okay. Can you do a class on paper piecing sometime? Yes, definitely. We have featured paper piecing on sewingonline.sulky.com. We actually did a national parks quilt, and it was all done with paper pieced blocks that look like national park icons. There's like a bear, there's a mountain, things like this that you're creating by paper piecing different fabrics together. So you can check that one out, and that's a free webcast at sewingonline.sulky.com. And there's a really, really great tutorial on foundation paper piecing using Sulky Fabri-Solvy. Another great water-soluble stabilizer that you can use that has the feel and look of paper that you can print on, and then after your paper piecing is complete, it totally washes away. So you don't have to pick out little pieces of paper after you sew through them and worry about the potential of popping out your stitches by, tearing away all of that paper. Fabri-Solvy is so great for foundation paper piecing. That's really why it was made. And I highly suggest you grab some up if you love to do foundation paper piecing projects, or if you're new to it as well, you can check out our blog. There's quite a few paper piecing tutorials on the blog, including this paper pieced heart quilt. And the paper pieced heart is a great starter project if you're new to foundation paper piecing, because the pieces of fabric that you're dealing with are rather large. You can really get into some really intricate paper piecing projects where you're using really small little bits of fabric to create a scene or even a face. Oh, it's so fun. So at any rate, that paper pieced heart quilt is a great starter one because those pieces are so much larger and just a little bit easier to kind of get the hang of the technique and the process of layering your fabrics with that Fabri-Solvy. All right. Let's see. Can you put the paper piece template? Okay. So for the heart quilt, yes, that paper pieced heart template is with the free project, accessible either on the Sulky blog, on our free projects page on our website. And we will also add the link to the comments here as well for you. All right. Linda says, I use this method on a quilt using my granddaughter's first year garments. That's a great idea. Make a bag with those hearts. Another great idea, Betsy. And a table centerpiece. Yes. You know, I love so many quilt patterns, but here's the thing. I can't have all these quilts in my home. I mean, like, I would love to have all of them. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that my family wants any more quilts at this point either. You know, when there's a special event or something like that. But I still love to make them. So it's a great idea if you love a quilt pattern or you see one that you're like, I have got to make that. You can always look at it block by block and instead make a block. Put it on the back of a jean jacket. Make a mug rug out of it. Make it smaller or larger for a table centerpiece. So kind of think outside the box when you see these really beautiful quilt patterns. Maybe you don't want to make the full quilt, but you want to make some part of it. You know, you can always rethink how it's presented, you know. All right. Love the hearts on the quilt. Thank you, Sandy. I might try this as a garden flag. Both designs could be used. Great idea. All right. I might have gotten to all the questions, but definitely if you have your questions, be sure to put them in the live chat so that you are eligible to win today's door prize from Sulky, which is a 3-yard pack of Sulky Fabri-Solvy. So you can try this technique out for yourself. I will pick one person totally at random. It's quite a process picking the winner, I will say. All right. Helen says, how about pressing on the back side for quilted hearts on a quilt square? You would want to fluff it on the right side. To fuse it, maybe pressing on the back side of the fabric. You know what? That could work because you'll get a better bond from fusing from the wrong side. You just really want to make sure that your applique isn't going to shift when you do that. And I would err on the side of caution of doing that on a sweatshirt. You just need to really make sure that you know the fabric content of the wrong side of your sweatshirt and whether or not it can withstand the heat of an iron. Same goes for all of your fabric when you're using fusibles. All right. Does the stuffing ball up when you wash it? Great question. Mine did not, but I didn't use a lot of stuffing. But I'm imagining if it did clump up a little bit on you after drying it, it should fluff out, and maybe you can manipulate it with your hands a little bit to distribute the fiber fill again. But mine did not when I washed it to get the stabilizer out. So, I mean, maybe over time if you're washing it a bazillion times, but I didn't have that problem. And you might want to just, you know, double check the fiber content of the fiber fill that you're using as well. Make sure that it's washable, it'll fluff back out, that type of thing. Great question. Is there a small package of stabilizers? Yes. So we have 1-yard packs of stabilizers. If you want to do a smaller scale project like this, you can grab up a 1-yard pack and you will have plenty of stabilizer to make tons of hearts out of a 1-yard pack. So you can check those out at sulky.com. Do you make your stitch length smaller? For paper piecing, it's generally recommended to make your stitch length smaller so that you can actually perforate the paper and making it easier to tear it away. But when you're working with paper solvy, you don't have to make your stitch length smaller because the paper solvy is going to dissolve with water. So you don't have to worry about perforating it. I particularly love that feature because when I make my stitch length smaller, when I make a mistake, it makes it harder to rip out those stitches. So I love using the paper solvy so that I don't have to make my stitch length smaller. So if that's what you mean when you're paper piecing, that's my answer to that. But if you meant something else, let me know. All right. Would a high loft batting work for the stuffing? Probably. But again, I would cut it smaller than our seam allowance so that you can stuff it and make it flat. And then you have a piece of batting. And then again, you don't have all of that bulk, you know, turning it with the stabilizer and the fabric intact. But yeah, I think that would work just fine. You know, kind of using your template to cut out those hearts out of the batting and trimming away the seam allowance so that you can insert it into the heart and it fills out, you know, in between your fabric seam allowance. Okay, and yes, flower petals are gorgeous with this technique, Christy. It's just the best for getting the curve of the petals to look absolutely perfect. If you're doing like a flower applique with the circle center and a bunch of petals around it, perfect with this technique. Okay. Reduce the hearts and make matching fabric heart earrings. Doris, you are so cute, and I love that idea. Maybe swapping some metallic thread for the stitches of your hearts. Absolutely. I wanted my stitching to really blend in with the fabric, so I kept that 50 weight cotton thread that I used to create all of the appliques. That's what I used to stitch my hearts to the sweatshirt, but you could certainly choose a metallic. You could even choose our reflective thread. And, you know, then when you're out at night and the car lights shine on you, they can see you. They'll just see a bunch of, you know, reflective hearts walking by. So yet, by all means, switch to a decorative thread when you are edge stitching or top stitching your appliques down and add even more embellishment to the project. Perfect. All right. Everyone wants a pattern of this shirt. Okay, good to know. There are so many comments. Thank you so much. So many projects, so little time. I feel ya. Absolutely. All right. Lots of people saying, hey, make all the quilts, and it doesn't matter if you don't need another quilt. Find some shelters to donate to. Give them as gifts. I know there are lots of cancer centers that take beautiful quilts for patients in need, or, you know, just to snuggle up with while people are getting treatment. Lots of kids charities to donate quilts to. So you're right. I should never have said don't make the quilts. That's not what I meant. Make all the quilts. I just mean after making the quilt, you can also make some more blocks and get some more mileage out of that pattern by creating some smaller things, you know, a tote bag, a table runner, that type of thing. All right. Did you say the heart pattern is on Sulky? So the heart template that I used for the sweatshirt appliques is accessible through the Sulky blog, so blog.sulky.com. I also linked directly to it in the description of today's post, so you can click right on over to that blog post, download the template, and print it out, and you will be ready to go. All right. Alice says, I just sent a quilt to my sister-in-law at a nursing home. Exactly. There, you know, everybody needs a quilt, right? So, okay. Could you use decorative stitches to quilt the paper pieces of the hearts for that quilt? Absolutely. You could do kind of a crazy quilt look. So after doing the paper piecing, you could choose a decorative stitch and stitch along all of the seams of each heart to quilt them to that backing fabric, you know, through all layers of your quilt. That would be really, really pretty. And choose a different thread color depending on, you know, the fabrics that you're using for each paper pieced heart. And you'll have lots of embellishment and have a lot of fun creating that quilt. All right, perfect. Okay, I think I have gotten through all of the questions. Thank you so much for asking them. Again, I will pick one viewer at random who is commenting, asking those questions, giving me those emojis to win our 3-yard pack of Fabri-Solvy today. And be sure to head on over to sewingonline.sulky.com if you have registered for our spring wall hanging session with Designs by JUJU, because all of the videos, all of the lessons, all of the designs are ready for you starting today. This is not a live event, so you can head on over there and start watching at any time that's convenient for you. It's a completely self-led session. So you are in charge of which lessons that you want to watch when, and you can always return to it at any time through your account, through your own personal library there at sewingonline.sulky.com. So you have all access to this course forever, as long as you have your account there with us. So it's a great, great resource, really cute project. You will be so ready for spring by stitching out all of your cute freestanding elements. And you can just stitch out that little birdie and give him a little thread tail if you want to do your elements separately or connect them together to create this wall hanging. So lots of options for personalizing this one, including personalizing that little sign. You'll see this one says home sweet home. There's also a sign that says welcome spring. And then there's also a blank sign that you will learn how to customize. So make sure to join us over there. And thanks for joining me today. I'll see you on another So What next Tuesday.